I came home to find my boyfriend of 5 years, Ryan, kissing another man in our Chicago apartment. No warning, no build-up, just the two of them, locked in an embrace by the kitchen counter where we'd shared countless dinners. My keys slipped from my hand, clattering to the floor, and they both turned to face me. Ryan's eyes widened, but the other guy, a stranger with sharp cheekbones and a smug grin, didn't even flinch. "Ethan," Ryan started, stepping toward me. "This isn't what it looks like." I laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even me. "Really? Because it looks like you're done with us." He hesitated, and that pause told me everything. 5 years. 5 years of building a life together, of dodging questions from my conservative family, of pretending I didn't hear the whispers at work, and it ended with a single, careless moment. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just grabbed my jacket and walked out, leaving them to figure out the wreckage. An hour later, I was pacing Millennium Park, the bean reflecting the city lights like a warped mirror of my life. I'd always thought Ryan and I were solid, that we'd weathered the storms, his parents' disapproval, my boss's sideways comments about keeping personal stuff private. But now I was a 31-year-old gay man with no partner, no plan, and a job that barely tolerated me. I worked in sports marketing, a field where being out wasn't exactly celebrated. My colleagues were fine until it came up. Then it was all tight smiles, and let's not make it a thing. I kept quiet to keep the peace, but Ryan's betrayal flipped a switch. Why was I still hiding? Why was I letting other people's comfort dictate my life? My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. "We need to talk. Please." I ignored it and pulled up my work email instead. There was a message from my boss about a new campaign promoting a women's soccer league. The kicker? They wanted me to pitch it at a conference in Los Angeles next week, in front of execs who'd once debated whether guys like me belonged in sports at all. I typed a reply. "I'm in. And I've got some ideas. Let's push the equality angle hard." It was a risk, but I was done playing small. If I was going to rebuild, it'd be on my terms. The next morning, Ryan showed up at my door, looking like he hadn't slept. "Ethan, I messed up," he said, voice cracking. "I didn't mean for this to happen. Can we fix it?" I leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "Fix it? You made your choice. I'm making mine." His face fell. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done pretending. For you, for work, for anyone. I'm heading to LA for a job thing, and when I get back, I'm moving out." He stared at me, stunned. "You're just leaving?" "Yeah," I said, meeting his gaze. "And maybe you should figure out why you thought this was okay." He didn't argue. He just nodded and left, and I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. I'd spent years dodging the big questions about love, about who I was supposed to be in a world that didn't always want me. Now, they were crashing down, and I had no choice but to face them. The days before LA were chaos. Packing, dodging Ryan's calls, prepping for the pitch. I threw myself into the campaign, weaving in stats about pay gaps and representation, stuff that'd make those execs squirm. I wasn't just selling soccer. I was selling a fight for fairness, something I'd ignored in my own life for too long. On my last night in Chicago, I met my friend Lila at a cafe. She was a fierce ally, the kind who'd call out bigotry before you could blink. "You're finally doing it," she said, grinning over her coffee. Stepping up. "It's about dang time. Or I'm about to crash and burn." I shot back, half serious. "Nah, you got this. Just don't let those suits shut you down." They hate when we talk about equality. Makes him twitchy. I smirked. Good. Let him twitch. We laughed, but her words stuck. This wasn't just about a job or a breakup. It was about claiming space I'd let others take from me. In LA, I'd face execs who'd rather I stayed invisible. Back home, I'd face a society still arguing over whether I deserved to marry, to exist without apology. And somewhere in between, I'd have to figure out who I was without Ryan's shadow. Los Angeles shimmered under a relentless sun, the heat pressing against me like a mirror to my own turmoil. The conference hotel was a maze of glass and steel, a stark contrast to the cluttered comfort of my Chicago life. I dropped my bag on the bed and stared out at the sprawling city. Somewhere out there, I'd find the strength to reclaim myself. But for now, Ryan's betrayal gnawed at me, a wound still raw, while the uncertainty of my career loomed like a storm on the horizon. The first day of the conference passed in a haze of forced smiles and networking. I held my pitch tight, saving its energy for tomorrow's spotlight. By nightfall, I was restless, drawn to the rooftop bar like a moth to flame. I needed something, anything, to drown out the chaos in my mind. That's when I saw him. He stood by the bar, a whiskey in hand, dark hair glinting in the fading light. His presence was magnetic, broad shoulders, a sharp jaw, and eyes that pierced through the crowd. Our gazes met, and the air crackled. He smiled, slow and deliberate, and something long buried inside me roared to life. I crossed the room, pulse hammering. "Mind if I join you?" "Not at all," he said, voice deep and warm. "I'm Alex." "Ethan." His handshake was electric, a current that jolted me awake. We fell into conversation effortlessly, hours slipping by unnoticed. He was a photographer, here for a shoot, and unapologetically himself, something I envied. I told him about my job, my pitch, even Ryan, the words tumbling out like a dam breaking. He listened, really listened, and it felt like breathing again. "You're fearless," he said, his gaze steady. "Taking a stand like that, it's rare." I shrugged, but his praise lit a spark in me. "I'm tired of pretending." He lifted his glass. "To being real." We toasted, and the space between us tightened, charged with an unspoken pull. His breath grazed my ear as he leaned closer. "Want to get out of here?" My nod was all he needed. We left the bar, the city a blur as we walked to his hotel. The elevator ride was a held breath, anticipation thick enough to taste. When the door to his room clicked shut, the world fell away. He was on me in an instant, hands cupping my face, lips claiming mine with a ferocity that stole my breath. It was a collision of need, years of restraint, and longing breaking free. I matched him, kissing him with a hunger I hadn't known I carried, a fire that had smoldered too long. Our hands tore at shirts, fabric falling away as we stumbled toward the bed, desperate to close every inch between us. His skin was scorching against mine, every touch a spark that set me ablaze. We moved with an urgency that spoke of time lost, of desires denied too long. His fingers traced my spine, igniting shivers, while I gripped his shoulders, anchoring myself in the storm of sensation. It was a release, wild, consuming, like a tide we'd both been fighting for years, finally crashing ashore. "You're incredible," he breathed, voice rough with want, his lips brushing my neck. I answered with my hands, exploring the planes of his chest, feeling the frantic beat of his heart under my palm. We pressed closer, bodies entwined, the heat between us building to a fever pitch. It was raw and unrestrained, a dance of passion that felt like reclaiming something stolen from me. Every kiss, every caress was a shout against the silence I'd lived in for so long. When we finally stilled, breathless and tangled in the sheets, a quiet settled over us. The weight I'd carried for years was gone, replaced by a warmth that felt like freedom. Alex's arm draped over me, his breath steadying against my skin. "That was," he started, a grin tugging at his lips. "Everything," I finished, still reeling. We lay there, the city's hum a distant lullaby. He turned to me, eyes soft. "What's next for you, Ethan?" I exhaled, reality nudging at the edges of this moment. "I face the pitch tomorrow. Win or lose, I'm done shrinking myself." He nodded, a quiet respect in his expression. "Good. You shouldn't have to." I smiled, feeling stronger than I had in months. "And you? What's your story?" "Chasing my own battles," he said, a wry edge to his tone. "Photography's not exactly welcoming to guys like me, but I'm pushing back." We talked into the early hours about dreams, struggles, the weight of being seen. He wasn't just a stranger anymore. He was a mirror, reflecting a version of myself I'd forgotten. As dawn painted the sky, I realized this night had shifted me. It wasn't just about the heat of our connection. It was the courage it gave me to stand taller. Morning came too soon. I left his hotel with his number in my pocket, and a lightness in my step. We'd promised to meet again, but even if we didn't, he'd given me something invaluable, a taste of what it meant to be wanted fully and fiercely, without apology. The conference room was a battlefield of glass walls and polished tables, the kind of place where careers were made or shattered in minutes. I stood at the front, heart pounding, my pitch deck glowing on the screen behind me. The executives sat in a semicircle, their faces a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Some I recognized, men who'd once questioned if guys like me belonged in sports marketing. Others were new, their expressions unreadable. But I wasn't here to win them all over. I was here to speak my truth. I took a breath, steadying myself. "You got this," I thought, channeling the fire from last night with Alex. "Thank you for having me," I began, voice clear. "Today, I'm here to talk about more than just a campaign. I'm here to talk about a movement." The room shifted, a few execs leaning forward. I clicked to the first slide, a bold image of the women's soccer team, arms linked, faces fierce. "This isn't just about soccer," I said. "It's about equality. It's about giving these athletes the platform they deserve, not as a side note to the men's game, but as stars in their own right." A murmur rippled through the room. I pressed on, weaving in stats about viewership, pay gaps, and the cultural impact of representation. My words flowed, fueled by years of frustration, both personal and professional. I wasn't just pitching a campaign, I was pitching a fight. Then, midway through, a voice cut in like a knife. "Ethan, let's be real. Is this about sports or social justice?" It was Mark Daniels, a senior exec with a reputation for telling it like it is, which usually meant saying whatever made him comfortable. His tone was sharp, dismissive. "We're here to sell tickets, not start a debate." The room tensed. I felt the heat rise in my chest, but I didn't flinch. "It's both," I said, locking eyes with him. "Sports have always been a battleground for equality. If we ignore that, we're not just failing the athletes, we're failing the fans who need to see themselves reflected." Mark scoffed, leaning back. "Fans want entertainment, not a lecture. You're pushing an agenda, and it's not what this industry needs." The word agenda hung in the air like a slap. I could feel the eyes on me, waiting for my reaction. Part of me wanted to shrink, to smooth things over like I always had. But not today. Not after Ryan. Not after last night. I stepped forward, voice steady. "It's not an agenda, Mark. It's reality. And if you think ignoring it makes you neutral, you're wrong. It makes you complicit." A gasp echoed from the back. Mark's face reddened, but before he could retort, another voice broke in. "He's right." It was Sarah Chun, a younger exec I hadn't noticed before. She sat tall, her gaze unwavering. "My sister's a pro athlete. She's faced more prejudice than you can imagine, on and off the field. If we don't address it, we're part of the problem." The room shifted again, the tension cracking. Mark opened his mouth, but Sarah wasn't done. "And Ethan," she added, turning to me, "I appreciate you bringing this up. It's about time someone did." I nodded, gratitude flooding me. But the battle wasn't over. Mark leaned forward, his voice low and cutting. "Look, I get it. You got a personal stake in this. But let's not pretend your lifestyle doesn't color your perspective." The room froze. His words, lifestyle, hit like a punch to the gut. I felt the old fear creep in, the urge to deflect, to laugh it off. But then I remembered Alex's touch, the way he'd looked at me like I was worth something. I remembered Lila's fierce belief in me, and I remembered who I was. I straightened, meeting Mark's gaze head on. "You're right, Mark. I do have a personal stake. I'm a gay man in an industry that's told me to stay quiet. I face prejudice, just like these athletes. And if that colors my perspective, good, because it means I see what you're too afraid to acknowledge." The silence was deafening. Then, from the far end of the table, a slow clap started. It was Tom Reyes, a veteran exec with a grizzled beard and a reputation for fairness. "Well said, Ethan. It's about dang time we had this conversation." Others joined in, a wave of applause that felt like a lifeline. Mark sat back, fuming but outnumbered. I exhaled, the weight lifting. The pitch wasn't over, but the hardest part was. After the presentation, I stepped into the hallway, adrenaline still buzzing. My phone lit up with a text from Alex. Heard you killed it. Proud of you. I smiled, warmth spreading through me. Another message followed from Lila. You're a freaking rock star. Drinks when you're back? I typed quick replies, then leaned against the wall, letting the moment sink in. I'd face the fire and come out stronger. But as I stood there, Sarah Chan approached, her expression thoughtful. Hey, she said, I meant what I said in there. My sister's story, it's not easy. She's had to fight for every scrap of recognition. I nodded. I can imagine. It's why this campaign matters. She hesitated, then added. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry for what Mark said. It was out of line. Thanks, I said, but I'm used to it. Doesn't make it right, though. She smiled faintly. No, it doesn't. But you handled it like a pro. If you ever need an ally, you've got one. Her words were a balm, a reminder that not everyone was like Mark. I appreciate that, I said. Maybe we can grab coffee sometime, talk strategy. I'd like that, she replied, and we exchanged numbers before parting ways. Back in my hotel room, I collapsed onto the bed, exhaustion and triumph warring inside me. The pitch had gone better than I'd hoped, but Mark's words still stung. They were a reminder that the fight wasn't over. Not in this industry, not in my life. I thought about Ryan, about the years I'd spent dimming my light to fit his comfort. I thought about Alex, about the way he'd made me feel seen, desired, alive. And I thought about the campaign, about the athletes who deserved better than what the world had given them. My phone buzzed again. Alex, asking if I wanted to meet for dinner. I grinned, typing back, absolutely. Let's make it unforgettable. As I got ready, I caught my reflection in the mirror. For the first time in a long time, I liked what I saw. Not just the man staring back, but the future he was building. One where he didn't have to hide, didn't have to apologize. One where he could stand tall, no matter who tried to knock him down. The glow of my pitch victory didn't last. By the next morning, the whispers had started. First in the conference halls, then online. It began with a tweet from a sports blogger I'd never heard of. Insider says execs are concerned about Ethan Carter's agenda-driven campaign. Is this the future of sports marketing? The post had over 1,000 likes by the time I saw it. I tried to brush it off, but the unease crept in. When I walked into the hotel lobby for breakfast, I caught Mark Daniels huddled with a group of execs, their heads bent together, voices low. He glanced my way, a smirk tugging at his lips, and I knew this wasn't over. My phone buzzed. It was Sarah Chun. Check your email. Now, I opened my inbox to find a forwarded message from Mark to the entire executive team, including me by mistake. The subject line, Carter's campaign, urgent concerns. My stomach dropped as I read his words. Ethan's pitch, while passionate, raises serious questions about our brand's direction. His personal biases are clouding his judgment, and I'm not alone in thinking this campaign is more about virtue signaling than business. We need to discuss whether he's the right fit for this role. The email was CC'd to HR. My hands shook as I scrolled through the replies, some neutral, others nodding along with Mark's concerns. But it was the last line that hit hardest. Given his lifestyle choices, it's clear he's pushing a narrative that doesn't align with our core audience. There was plain as day. My sexuality weaponized against me. I felt the air leave my lungs, the old fear clawing back. For a second, I was 17 again, hearing my dad say, just don't make a thing, Ethan. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I fired off a reply, copying the entire thread. Mark, if you have concerns about my work, let's discuss them openly. But my lifestyle has nothing to do with my ability to do my job. It's 2025, time to catch up. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The fallout would come, but I was done hiding. By midday, the tension had spilled into the conference. A panel on sports and society turned into a thinly veiled debate about my campaign. Mark sat on stage, smirking as he fielded questions about balancing progress with tradition. I sat in the audience, fists clenched, until a familiar voice cut through the noise. Ethan Carter's campaign is exactly what this industry needs, Tom Reyes said, standing from the back row. It's bold, it's necessary, and frankly, it's overdue. If we're too scared to support equality, we don't deserve to lead. The room erupted, some clapping, others murmuring in dissent. Mark's face tightened, but he kept his composure. Tom, no one's saying equality isn't important. But we have to consider our audience. Not everyone's ready for this. Sarah Chun stood Graff next. Our audience is changing, Mark. And if we don't change with them, we'll be left behind. More voices joined in, a mix of support and pushback. It was chaos, but it was progress. For the first time, the conversation wasn't happening behind closed doors. It was out in the open, raw and real. As the panel wrapped, I caught Mark's eye. He looked furious, but there was something else there too, fear. He'd underestimated me, and now he was scrambling. That night, I met Alex for dinner at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. The air was warm, the lights twinkling like stars, but my mind was still spinning from the day's events. You okay? Alex asked, his hand brushing mine across the table. I exhaled, forcing a smile. It's been a lot. Mark's trying to tank my career, and he's using my sexuality to do it. Alex's jaw tightened. That's disgusting. But you're not backing down, right? No, I said, more certain than I felt. I can't. Not now. He leaned closer, his voice low. You're stronger than you think, Ethan, and you're not alone in this. His words steadied me, a reminder that I had allies, people who saw me, not just as a gay man, but as a person worth fighting for. We spent the rest of the dinner talking about everything and nothing, the weight of the day lifting with each laugh, each shared glance. By the time we left, I felt lighter, ready to face whatever came next. But the next morning, the storm hit full force. I woke to a barrage of notifications, texts, emails, missed calls. The headline on a major sports blog screamed, XX personal agenda sparks industry debate. Is Ethan Carter out of bounds? The article was a hit piece, twisting Mark's email into a narrative about me, forcing my views on the company. It even dug up an old photo of me and Ryan at a Pride event, captioning it with, Carter's personal life raises questions about his professional judgment. My heart pounded as I scrolled through the comments. Some supportive, but too many vicious, calling me everything from woke trash to slurs I hadn't heard since high school. It was a nightmare, and it was public. Then my phone rang. It was my boss, Linda. Ethan, we need to talk. I braced myself. I saw the article. I didn't ask for this. I know, she said, her tone surprisingly calm. But it's out there, and it's affecting the company. Mark's pushing for your suspension. My blood ran cold. Suspension? For what? For conduct unbecoming, she said, the words dripping with disdain. It's nonsense, but he's got allies on the board. I'm fighting it, but you need to be prepared. I swallowed hard. What do I do? Stay visible, she said. Don't hide. We're setting up a press conference tomorrow. You'll have a chance to speak, tell your side. The line went dead, and I sat there, stunned. A press conference? In front of the entire industry? It was a chance to clear my name or crash and burn. I spent the day in a daze, prepping with the PR team, rehearsing lines that fell hollow. Alex texted me encouragement, but even his words couldn't cut through the fear. That night, I barely slept, the weight of tomorrow pressing down like a vice. But just as I was drifting off, my phone buzzed again. It was Ryan. Saw the news. I'm sorry, Ethan. I never wanted this for you. I stared at the message, anger flaring. You don't get to apologize now, I thought. But then another text came through. There's something you need to know. Mark's not just some exec. He's my cousin. He's been trying to sabotage you since we started dating. My heart stopped. Mark was Ryan's cousin. The pieces clicked into place. Mark's hostility, his obsession with my lifestyle. It wasn't just professional. It was personal. I typed back, fingers shaking. Why didn't you tell me? I thought I could handle it, Ryan replied. But I was wrong. He's out of control, and I'm done protecting him. I'll help you take him down. I didn't know whether to trust him, but I didn't have a choice. Tomorrow, I'd face the world and Mark with the truth. And this time, I wouldn't be alone. Detective Jane Smith sat in her cluttered office, the dim glow of a desk lamp casting long shadows across the walls. Papers littered her desk, case files, witness statements, crime scene photos, all pieces of a puzzle she'd been trying to solve for weeks. A half-empty coffee cup sat cold and forgotten, its bitter scent mingling with the stale air. She rubbed her temples, exhaustion tugging at her, but determination kept her upright. This was it. After endless nights, she finally had enough to confront John Doe, the man she believed had murdered Sarah Johnson. Sarah had been a pillar of the community, a local activist whose brutal stabbing had sent shockwaves through the city. The pressure to crack the case had been relentless, and Jane felt it in every bone. She flipped open the file one last time, her eyes scanning the evidence. John's fingerprints on the knife, an eyewitness placing him near Sarah's house, a motive tied to his firing from her organization. It all fit. Too well, maybe. A flicker of doubt gnawed at her, but she pushed it aside. Doubt could wait. She needed action. Jane grabbed her phone and dialed her partner, Mike Torres. The line crackled before his gruff voice answered. Yeah. Mike, it's Jane. I'm going to John Doe's place. I've got him dead to rights. A pause. You sure? We don't have a warrant yet. I know, but I can't sit on this. He's our guy. I feel it. All right, but watch yourself. Call me if it goes sideways. Will do. She hung up, slipped on her coat, and headed out. The drive to John's house was a blur of dark streets and pounding rain. The wipers slashed across the windshield, barely keeping up with the downpour. Jane's hands gripped the steering wheel, her mind racing. What if she was wrong? No, she couldn't be. The evidence was solid. But that nagging doubt lingered, a whisper she couldn't silence. She pulled up to John's modest home, the windows dark except for a faint glow in the living room. The storm added a layer of menace, thunder rumbling as she stepped out of the car. Her boots splashed in puddles as she approached the door, her heart thudding in her chest. She knocked, sharp and loud. The door creaked open, and John Doe stood there, his face pale and drawn. He was in his late 30s, wiry, with tired eyes that widened at the sight of her. Detective Smith? What's this about? I need to talk to you, John. About Sarah Johnson. He swallowed hard. I already told you everything I know. Can I come in? He hesitated, then stepped aside, letting her into the cramped living room. A TV flickered silently in the corner, casting eerie shadows. Jane didn't sit. She stood, her stance firm, and cut to the chase. John, we've got evidence tying you to Sarah's murder. Your fingerprints are on the knife. A witness saw you leaving her place the night she died. And we both know you had a grudge after she fired you. His face went white, his hands trembling. That's impossible. I was here that night. I swear. Then explain the fingerprints. I can't. Someone must have set me up. I didn't do it. Jane stepped closer, her voice low and steady. John, it's over. You're under arrest for the murder of Sarah Johnson. He staggered back, shaking his head. No, you've got the wrong guy. I didn't. Her phone buzzed, cutting him off. She glanced at the screen, Mike. Frowning, she answered. What? Jane, hold off. The lab just called. There's another set of prints on the knife. They don't match John's. Her stomach dropped. What? Whose are they? We're running them now, but it's not him. Looks like we might have jumped the gun. Jane's eyes flicked to John, who stared at her. Fear and confusion etched across his face. She felt the ground shift beneath her, the certainty she'd clung to crumbling. You're sure? Positive. What's your status? I'm with him now. I'll bring him in for questioning instead. Smart. See you soon. She ended the call, her mind reeling. John, she said slowly, you're not under arrest. Not yet, but I need you to come to the station with me. We've got more to figure out. He nodded, relief mixing with panic. I told you, I'm not the killer. Let's go. She gestured toward the door, her voice clipped. The ride back was silent, except for the rain hammering the roof. Jane's thoughts churned. If John wasn't the killer, who was? How had the evidence pointed so cleanly to him? And that witness? Had they lied? She glanced at John in the passenger seat, his hands clasped tight, his breathing shallow. He looked like a man caught in a nightmare he didn't understand. She knew the feeling. When they reached the station, Mike was waiting in the bullpen, his face grim. Jane, we got a hit on those prints. They belong to Mark Thompson, Sarah's ex-husband. Jane froze. Mark? He had an alibi. said he was out of town. Yeah, well, we're digging into that now. Looks like it might not hold up. She ran a hand through her damp hair, frustration bubbling up. I was so sure it was John. Mike shrugged. We all were. Evidence looked airtight. But that's why we checked twice. Jane glanced at John, now sitting in an interview room, then back at Mike. What do we know about Mark? History of domestic issues with Sarah. Nothing stuck legally, but he's got a temper. We ruled him out too fast. A wave of guilt hit her. She'd been so eager to close the case, to prove herself under the pressure, that she'd latched onto John without digging deeper. All right, let's bring Mark in and tear his alibi apart. Mike nodded. Already on it. Uniforms are picking him up now. Jane turned toward the interview room, steeling herself. John wasn't off the hook yet. There were still questions, but Mark Thompson had just rocketed to the top of her list. As she walked, the weight of the case pressed harder. She'd been wrong once. She wouldn't let it happen again. The truth was out there, slippery and elusive, and Jane wouldn't rest until she had it in her grasp. The morning of the press conference dawned bright and unforgiving, the Los Angeles sun already beating down on the city. I stood in front of the mirror in my hotel room, adjusting my tie for the third time. My hands were steady, but my mind was a whirlwind. Today, I'd face the world, cameras, reporters, industry insiders, and tell my side of the story. It wasn't just about defending my campaign or my career. It was about defending my right to exist as I am, without apology. I thought back to the man I was just a week ago, the one who walked into that Chicago apartment and saw Ryan with another man. That Ethan felt like a stranger now, scared, unsure, always second-guessing. The Ethan in the mirror was different. He'd been through fire and come out stronger, tempered by betrayal, prejudice, and the unexpected spark of connection with Alex. My phone buzzed on the dresser. A text from Alex. You've got this. Speak your truth. I smiled, warmth spreading through me. Another message followed from Sarah Chun. We're with you. Don't let them win. I took a deep breath and headed downstairs. The hotel's conference room was already filling up, a buzz of voices and camera shutters. Linda, my boss, stood near the podium, her expression a mix of concern and resolve. She caught my eye and nodded. You ready? As I'll ever be, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She squeezed my arm. Just remember, you're not alone in this. I glanced around the room. Tom Reyes was there, his grizzled beard and sharp eyes scanning the crowd. Sarah sat in the front row, her posture straight and defiant. And in the back, almost hidden, was Ryan. Our eyes met briefly, and he gave a small nod. I wasn't sure what to make of his presence, but there was no time to dwell on it. The press conference began, and Linda stepped to the podium first. She spoke briefly, outlining the company's commitment to diversity and inclusion, but it was clear the room was waiting for me. When she introduced me, a hush fell over the crowd. I walked to the podium, my heart pounding. The lights were blinding, but I forced myself to focus. Thank you all for being here. I started, my voice echoing through the speakers. I'm Ethan Carter, and I'm here to set the record straight. I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. Over the past few days, there have been accusations that my work on the women's soccer campaign is driven by a personal agenda, that my lifestyle makes me unfit to lead this project. I won't deny that I'm a gay man. I've never hidden that. But my sexuality isn't a liability. It's part of who I am, and it's given me a perspective that this industry desperately needs. A murmur rippled through the room, but I pressed on. The truth is, this campaign isn't about me. It's about the athletes who've been sidelined for too long. It's about the fans who deserve to see themselves represented. And yes, it's about equality, because sports have always been a battleground for progress. I glanced at Mark Daniels, who sat stone-faced in the second row. Some people would rather cling to the past, to a time when voices like mine were silenced. But I'm not here to ask for permission to speak. I'm here to demand the space I've earned. The room erupted in applause, but I wasn't done. I've faced prejudice my whole life, from family, from colleagues, from strangers online. But I've also found allies, people who believe that talent and integrity matter more than who I love. And to those people, I say thank you. I took a breath, my voice softening. This isn't just my fight. It's a fight for anyone who's ever been told they don't belong. And I'm not backing down. As the applause swelled again, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. But then, a voice cut through the noise. Marks. Nice speech, Ethan. But let's talk facts. Your campaign is a risk, and your personal life is a distraction. The board agrees with me. The room tensed, but before I could respond, another voice rang out. Actually, Mark, the board doesn't agree. It was Tom Reyes standing tall. In fact, we just voted to fully endorse Ethan's campaign. And we're launching an internal review of your conduct. Mark's face went pale. What? You can't? Oh, we can, Tom said, his tone icy. And we have. Your attempt to sabotage Ethan based on his sexuality is a violation of our ethics policy. Consider this your notice. The room buzzed with shock, cameras flashing. I stood there, stunned, as the pieces fell into place. Ryan's confession, the board's support, it was all coming together. Mark stormed out, his career in ruins, but I felt no satisfaction. Just relief. As the press conference wrapped, Sarah approached me, a grin on her face. You did it, Ethan. You turned the tide. I shook my head. We did it. I couldn't have done this alone. She smiled. True, but you led the charge. Now, let's make sure this campaign changes the game. Later that night, I met Alex for a quiet dinner. The city lights glittered outside the restaurant window, a reminder of how far I'd come. We talked about the future, about the campaign, about us. There was a spark between us, a promise of something real, but we both knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. As we walked back to the hotel, hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. The fight wasn't over, but I was ready for it. And for the first time, I wasn't fighting alone. But just as we reached the lobby, my phone buzzed with a message from Ryan. There's something else you need to know. Mark wasn't acting alone. There's more to this, and it's bigger than you think. I stared at the screen, my heart sinking. The battle wasn't over yet. I stood by the window of my hotel room, the city lights of Los Angeles twinkling like distant stars. The quiet was a stark contrast to the storm I'd weathered over the past week. My mind drifted back to the beginning, walking into that Chicago apartment, seeing Ryan with another man, the betrayal that had shattered my world. It felt like a lifetime ago. Now, as I stared out at the sprawling city, I realized how far I'd come. The Ethan who had once hidden in the shadows, afraid to speak his truth, was gone. In his place stood someone stronger, someone who had faced prejudice, betrayal, and doubt, and emerged victorious. The press conference had been a triumph, a moment where I'd stood tall and reclaimed my narrative. But Ryan's cryptic message lingered. Mark wasn't acting alone. There's more to this, and it's bigger than you think. Victory, it seemed, was only the beginning. I picked up my phone and texted Ryan, "Meet me in the lobby." Now, 10 minutes later, we sat in a secluded corner of the hotel lounge. Ryan looked weary, the weight of his actions etched into his face. "Ethan, I'm sorry," he began, but I waved him off. "Who else is involved?" I asked, my voice steady. He hesitated, then spoke. "Tom Reyes and Linda. They've been working with Mark to undermine you. They see your campaign, and you, as a threat to their control." My heart clenched. Tom, who'd clap me on the back and call me a rising star. Linda, my boss, who'd smiled and nodded at my ideas. "Why?" I demanded. "Because you're challenging the status quo," Ryan said. "Your visibility, your stance on equality, it's rattling them. They want to keep the company in their grip, where people like you are kept quiet." Anger flared, but I held it steady. "What do I do?" "You fight," Ryan said, pulling a USB drive from his pocket. "I have evidence, emails, recordings that prove it. We can use it to take them down." I took the drive, determination settling in. "Let's do it." The next morning, I walked into the boardroom, the USB drive burning a hole in my pocket. The room buzzed with the usual pre-meeting chatter, but it fell silent as I stepped forward. Tom and Linda sat at the head of the table, their expressions shifting from surprise to unease. "Ethan, what is this about?" Linda asked, her voice tight. "I know what you've been doing," I said, placing the drive on the table. "You've been working with Mark to sabotage my campaign, to push me out because of who I am." Tom's eyes narrowed. That's a serious accusation. And I have proof, I replied, plugging the drive into the projector. Emails, recordings, it's all here. The screen lit up with damning evidence. Emails plotting to discredit me. Recordings of Tom laughing about putting the queer kid in his place. Linda suggesting they frame my exit as a resignation. The room was silent, the air heavy with shock. Sarah chin stood. Ethan's right. This is unacceptable. One by one, others joined her. Alex, James, even quiet Priya for marketing. Tom's face reddened. This is outrageous. You can't just, I can and I will. I cut in. You betrayed me and everything this company stands for. You don't belong here. Linda's shoulders slumped. Ethan, we were just trying to protect the company. From what? I shot back. From progress? From fairness? That's not protection. That's cowardice. The chairman cleared his throat. Ethan, thank you for this. We'll launch an investigation immediately. Tom, Linda, consider yourselves suspended pending the outcome. Tom stood, his chair scraping loudly. This isn't over, Ethan. I met his glare. Yes, it is. As I left the boardroom, relief washed over me, tinged with a bittersweet ache. I'd won, but the scars of the fight remained. I thought back to the Ethan I'd been, afraid, unsure, letting others define me. That Ethan was gone, forged anew by every trial. Ryan's betrayal, Mark's venom, the quiet support of friends like Alex and Sarah. This journey had taught me hard truths. Silence can wound as deeply as words. Allies can turn the tide. Strength isn't loud. It's the quiet resolve to keep going. And change, though slow, is worth every ounce of effort. Standing by the window later, I looked out at the city and thought of you, the reader. If you faced what I did, betrayal, prejudice, a system stacked against you, how would you respond? Would you find the courage to stand up, to speak out, even when it's hard? I believe you could. We all can. It's not easy, but it's what shapes us, what builds a better world.